Hello. In this lesson we're going to be talking about the squeeze theorem, sometimes called the sandwich theorem. And you'll see why it's called the squeeze theorem in a few moments, but here's the formal statement for the squeeze theorem. If we know that one function, specifically g of x, right here, is in between f of x and h of x, so g of x is always bigger than or the same as f of x, and g of x is always smaller than or the same as h of x. As long as we're near a, and we also know that the limit here of f of x as we go towards a, if that's L, and the limit of h of x as we go towards a is also L, that the limit of g as we approach a of g of x must be L as well. And so let me draw a picture to illustrate what's happening here. So here's my coordinate plane. And so if I have some situation like this, and we can call it, we'll call it h of x since that's the biggest, and then I have my f of x so that it's lower than it, and it does some weird funky stuff here, but it's always lower or the same as h of x. So there's my f of x right there in the blue. If I know that both as we approach a for h of x, so this is a, as we go towards a in these, that they tend to the same limit, which we have called L. So they have the same y value, or as we approach that value of a. Now, I'm going to undo this just to give myself more space here. Our other function, which we've called g of x, has to sit between those two or the same as one of them. And so usually these things are doing some weird funky stuff here. But everywhere I've gone, the g of x has been smaller than our h of x, but bigger than the f of x, except at our point A. At the point A, it's the exact same as both of them, which is allowed. G of x was allowed to be the same as h, and was allowed to be the same as f of x. So what that tells us is that because the limit of those two functions, as they approached a, got them the value of L, that g of x must have been doing the same thing at that point. So those two functions really squeezed the middle function, the g of x, or it sandwiched it. Thus the name the squeeze theorem, or the sandwich theorem. Okay, so the whole purpose of the squeeze and the sandwich theorems is because our middle function, this g of x, may be doing some really funky things that we can compare to two other functions that squeeze it in and match it at that one point, so we can help find a limit. Okay, so get this into your notes. For right now, we are done.